Hello. Hi. Hi, friend. Deep breaths. Deep breaths. Deep breaths. Deep breaths are love notes to your body. So don't forget to take deep breaths. I wanted to share some lessons about grit and resilience and tell you a little story. So resilience, if you don't know what resilience is the ability to recover quickly from difficulties. And grit is, it's like positive psychology, so knowing that you will overcome. It's like to persevere. So they're very similar. I have been doing resilience work for a really long time. And I write about my own story of resilience, strength, and coming from a place of gratitude for all of the obstacles and challenges. So I wanted to share because recently I was on a call with some business leaders in my industry, and they were talking about one of the leaders who just got promoted was talking about this idea of grit and how that really pushed him to where he is today. And I so believe it, and I think it's really critical for this time right now of what we're experiencing, this major obstacle. Many of us are facing a lot of different obstacles, and so I wanted to share just a few things of my own learning, so hopefully it can support you. So one of the things is that that can happen when we're faced with an obstacle is that we begin to feel fear or a sense of powerlessness. And so when we're afraid or we're feeling powerless, we withdraw. We kind of shut down. And it's important to keep showing up. To keep showing up for yourself, to keep showing up in your life. And this may be different. And so that idea of keep showing up doesn't necessarily mean that, you have to have this positive smile, you get to be your authentic self, but to show up in your life and to show up to what life is offering you. And in that showing up, you can identify what's working and what's not working and what you get to add to shift. So thinking about the what's working is, looking at, well, maybe it's not supporting me to be drinking heavily during this time. And so that's not working. Being able to just pause and notice like what's working in my life, like what is really working right now can support in being resilient. And what's not working is to be able to cut stuff out and then adding things that support you. The other thing is staying connected to yourself. This is something I am deeply passionate about as a yoga teacher and as a student of life, yoga student. I feel like I'm always a student. Is being able to continuously reconnect with myself. We often can get distracted, and we're all on our own journey. And we can get distracted about how other people are doing it better and that we don't have what it takes to make it wherever you are in life. And so being able to connect back to yourself, to connect to your own journey, and that everybody, we're on this journey together. We are mirror reflections of each other. We, comparison is the thief of joy. And so once we get into that comparison, it's really a trap. And so being resilient and having grit is being able to reconnect to ourselves and honor like what our story is and know that like it is a story of strength and that we all come from strength. Mindfulness is a huge tool for resilience. And meditation and mindfulness really allows us to settle our nervous system. So, going back to that, like when we're feeling afraid or powerless, and we want to withdraw, that's where mindfulness can really come into play. So being able to just sit for a few moments in stillness and really allow the nervous system to settle so that whatever we're facing, we can face in a place of confidence and peace and knowing that we'll get through it. The biggest thing, the biggest thing that I've learned is belief. Having a belief in ourselves, having a belief that we will get through it. And so resilience actually came to me a really long time ago. I grew up, to share a little story, I grew up very poor. I grew up in a single parent home for most of my child life. I grew up also in a family of domestic violence and a family of alcoholism and addiction. And I was surrounded by all of that in my younger years and adult years, but a lot growing up. And I remember at a very young age that there was this like voice that just came to me and told me that there was something bigger out there for me in the world, that there was something beyond what I was facing. And so this is the staying connected to yourself. And that voice was the voice that always came to me when I felt like giving up, when I felt like I couldn't go on, when I felt like the world was too dark for me to be in anymore, or for me to show up to anymore. I was suicidal when I was younger, and part of that was just like really succumbing into the darkness. And part of that resilient spirit was that higher self, that like conscious higher self coming in to pull through and to not allow the lower part of myself, like the lower meaning like the lower brain, the like the monkey mind brain, the ego, the reactive ego that tends to pull you from one place to the next. And so being resilient has a lot to do with belief, like believing in ourselves and believing that there is like another side to this, that there's something on the other side of whatever we're facing, whatever we're experiencing. And this is so, I think, pertinent for right now. Because there's definitely times where I sit with and thinking like, are we ever going to get through this? Like, what's going to happen next? What is my life going to look like? And so being able to have that belief in ourselves and belief in the future, that we will get through it and we have what it takes, is super critical for our own resilience. Human beings are resilient AF. They're resilient as, I'm not going to curse, because there might be some little ears around with all of the little people, our children who are constantly around us now. We are resilient. We are resilient as ever, and we forget that. We forget how resilient we are. And if we connect into ourselves, like we really truly connect with ourselves, we practice mindfulness, meditation, we practice that like mindset of belief, we will get through it. Lastly, I want to share an excerpt from Eat, Pray, Love. This is one of my favorite books. I read it so many years ago, and my friend actually mailed it to me when I moved to San Francisco. And it was a pivotal book for me. I moved to San Francisco to create the life I had always imagined. And when I read it, it was so powerful, and it reignited and reminded me of why it's important to share my story. And I'm writing a book. I've been writing a book for a long time. I wanted to read this excerpt because I think it has so much to do with resilience. And so it's Elizabeth Gilbert, Eat, Pray, Love. Whatever like conceptions you have about Elizabeth Gilbert or the book or anything, try to put those to the side, embrace this. So what she writes in the very last chapter: my thoughts turn to something I read once, something the Zen Buddhists believe. They say that an oak tree is brought into creation by two forces at the same time. Obviously, there is the acorn from which it all begins, the seed which holds all the promise and potential, which grows into the tree. Everybody can see that. But only a few can recognize that there is another force operating here as well. The future tree itself, which wants so badly to exist that it pulls the acorn into being, drawing the seedling forth with longing out of the void, guiding the evolution from nothingness to maturity. In this respect, say the Zens, it is the oak tree that creates the very acorn from which it was born. I think about the woman I have become lately, about the life that I am now living, about how much I always wanted to be this person and live this life, liberated from the farce of pretending to be anyone other than myself. I think of everything I endured before getting here and wonder if it was me. I mean, this happy and balanced me, who is now dozing on the deck of this small Indonesian fishing boat, who pulled the other younger, more confused and more struggling me forward during all those hard years. The younger me was the acorn full of potential, but it was the older me, the already existent oak, who was saying the whole time, yes, grow, change, evolve, come and meet me here where I already exist in wholeness and maturity. I need you to grow into me. That, my friends, is the epitome of resilience. And when we connect with ourselves and we listen to that quiet voice that is telling us that we will make it through, that there is something bigger on the other side of this obstacle that we are facing, we are resilient. If you'd like some more, I have a gift for you. Just message me or drop a comment. Would love to hear from you, and be well. Stay the course. Sending lots of love.